Okay, so here we have a Hallicrafters model S-38C, and as you can see, it's got some paint and whatnot on here. We're gonna find something to get that off with and get started restoring this radio. Okay, so here's our solution: some Novus number 2 scratch remover. This is a very, very fine substance that can be used for polishing, and in this case, this paint that's on this cabinet. I'm going to do a quick smoke test here. I've got it hooked up, and we'll just plug it in and see what happens. Well, I got a pretty serious hum. That's a big indicator that the electrolytic caps are gone, so those will definitely have to be replaced. So the radio is going to have to come out of the cabinet, and so make it a little easier working on this. These knobs will have to come off. We'll clean those along the way. I think they're attached by set screws using some Allen wrenches. Okay, so our usual suspect is the wax capacitor, and this one has actually 4 capacitors rolled into this one solid tube here. You can see the wires on there and the color code scheme, so pretty easy to figure out how to replace this. Our set screws on these 2 knobs won't come loose, so I've got some WD-40 on them soaking in there. We'll see how that helps after 24 hours. I was hoping to get these knobs off so I can take this whole chassis out away from the radio and clean it up on the inside, but if they don't want to come loose, then we'll have to fix it from the bottom up and work our way back. Well, we soldered our new capacitors. All the common grounds go to one side and all solder together there. We've got 4 pins coming off for the other positive sides. I like to strip these wires back and tin these points of contact up prior to making the solder joint. Makes the job a little bit easier. One thing we always want to do is shoot some tuner spray on the off on volume control and this band changer switch. Once you spray it on there, move it around a lot, try and knock some of that old dirt and crusty stuff off of there. It makes much better contact. Takes a lot of that noise out. Well, for this radio, we always want to make sure we replace this bottom cover. There's a lot of exposed wires behind this, so we'll make sure this cover gets put back on. If we don't have a cover, then we'll make one. This is something that gets overlooked a lot, is these little grooves in these knobs. They get full of dirt and whatnot. And just get you a big brush like this and just clean those grooves out of all that dirt. Looks a lot cleaner when it gets done, and just looks a lot better. We want to polish and clean our dial lenses too. Little Windex here. Get any little dust or dirt, paint, whatnot off these dials. Make them look nice and polished and pretty. Okay, so we've got all our tubes tested. The 12SQ7 here was a little weak, so we replaced that guy. But all the other tubes check out. There's been some kind of modification here. This was probably an external antenna plug that somebody has added. But we're going to bypass that and just kind of leave it where it's at. And there's some extra wires back here that we're not going to use, and we're just going to use the old antenna connection up front. Seems to be testing okay. This little 1/4 inch nut driver is really handy to have, especially if you're working on old radios. This one's got quarter inch nuts on the back to hold this back on. Really nice to have these. Okay, so we've got a completed radio here. We had a bad 12 SQ7 that had to be replaced. Also replaced our wax capacitor, of course. These almost always have to be replaced. If they're good, they will go bad eventually, so replace them anyway. This one had actually 4 capacitors in one here. Had 60 at 150 volts, 40 mics, 2 of them at 150 volts, and 20 mics at 150 volts. We replaced those with axial capacitors, 47 mics at 160 volts, and 2 40 mic capacitors at 160 volts, and a 20 mic capacitor at 160 volts. So we're good to go. I've got it all wired in, mounted in, and should be good to go.
De nosotros ha sido crecernos ante esto y ser cada día un poco más profesionales, ¿entiendes? ¿Qué pasa? Que durante muchos años nosotros
So this radio is completed. Working on several different bands, as you can hear. Pretty easy fix, but took a little elbow grease to get that paint off. See you next time. Bye now.